Hi, the question is when, not if, Iran will seek to revive hostilities with the United States. And when it does, the United Arab Emirates is likely to return to the top of Iran's target list after becoming the first state to fall into line with President Donald Trump's demand that U.S. allies join the U.S. economic blockade of Iran. Iran's likely and predictable provocation of renewed hostilities has little to do with a lust for war and everything to do with Mr. Trump's inability to conceive of anything short of an Iranian capitulation to end the war, and his so far elusive belief that increased pain will ultimately drive Iranians into the streets to topple the regime. Amplifying Mr. Trump's announcement of new unspecified crushing economic measures against Iran and countries that support or do business with Iran, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent argued that if we are doing the maximum economic pressure, then that means that likely there will not be a large scale kinetic restart. It's not clear what Mr. Trump's new measures will entail beyond attempting to coerce allies and partners to adopt similar sanctioning of Iran. Mr. Trump's options include implementing an executive order issued in February that would impose a 25% tariff on goods imported into the United States from any country that directly or indirectly acquires goods or services from Iran. Mr. Trump could also sanction third country individuals and entities, such as companies, airports, ports, and refineries that do business with Iran. Mr. Trump is emboldened by his belief that time is working in his, not Iran's, favor, with oil increasingly moving through the Strait of Hormuz's Omani rather than Iranian territorial waters, and buyers reducing their Persian Gulf oil purchases. Mr. Trump could be right. Media reports and trade intelligence firm Kepler report that up to 40% of pre war levels of oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz, protected by U.S. air power, without coordination with Iran, and despite the threat of Iranian attacks. The vessels often turn off their GPS signal and other electronics to avoid detection by Iranian authorities. Even if Mr. Trump is right, the problem is that he is failing to recognize that his strategic advantage creates a potential opening for a negotiated compromise resolution of the U.S. conflict with Iran, not Iran's defeat. To exploit his advantage, Mr. Trump would have to opt for diplomacy and the pursuit of an agreement that would address his core demands: free navigation through the Strait of Hormuz and a mechanism that guarantees that Iran will not develop a nuclear weapon, while giving Tehran incentives to compromise. Instead, Mr. Trump's coercive approach and language create an environment in which any Iranian concession would be perceived domestically and by much of the international community as Iran admitting defeat and caving into the president's demands. Mr. Trump's approach has prompted Iran to harden rather than soften its negotiating position, reaffirming a historical record that suggests that Iran would prefer to go down fighting rather than be seen as having surrendered. More fundamentally, by failing to avail himself of the opportunity, Mr. Trump has revealed his Achilles heel and rendered null and void what leverage he may have had. Iran will have heard Messrs. Trump and Bessent's subtext. The United States sees economic pressure as a way of avoiding another round of military confrontation. Reason enough for Iran to contemplate a revival of hostilities. Messrs. Trump and Bessent's subtext is reinforced by the fact that the U.S. military has since July 29 refrained from retaliating against Iran for attacks on vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran reads Mr. Trump's reluctance to return to military warfare in the context of reports that the United States has run down its munition stockpiles to alarmingly low levels, the American public's lack of support for the war in advance of midterm U.S. congressional elections in November, rising oil prices, and low U.S. oil reserves. Iranian officials and analysts have poo pooed Mr. Trump's threat of new economic pressure, noting that the Islamic Republic has weathered 47 years of U.S. sanctions. In recent days, Iran has warned that it has shifted its military posture from defensive to offensive in anticipation of indirect negotiations failing to achieve in a matter of weeks implementation of an expired U.S. Iranian Memorandum of Understanding on ending hostilities in the Iran war. Iran's offensive posture would likely entail renewed attacks on Gulf energy and other critical infrastructure and U.S. military assets in the Gulf, with the UAE likely to reemerge as a prime target. Iran signaled in the past week its more offensive posture, with attacks on 3 Emirati vessels in the Gulf, despite the UAE's efforts to reach out to Iran. Iran launched the attacks, for one of which it has denied responsibility, despite Emirati efforts to reach out to the Islamic Republic, a prime Iranian target in the early stages of the Iran war. The UAE sought in June to minimize the risk of attacks on its shipping and energy infrastructure by lifting a ban on exports to Iran, restoring Iranian air carriers' landing rights at Dubai airport, and allowing some 20,000 Iranian residents who were abroad when the war erupted to return to the UAE. The UAE further signaled that it was eager to benefit from Iran's reconstruction by investing in energy, ports, and logistics once the war ends and the US lifts its sanctions. Initially, the strategy appeared to work. Iran exempted the UAE from retaliatory strikes against Gulf states and Jordan. However, the most recent attacks on Emirati shipping rendered the Emirati outreach null and void, reimposing its suspension of all trade, commercial, and financial dealings with Iran. The UAE this week became the first country to comply with Mr. Trump's demand that U.S. allies and partners support the blockading of Iran. In the final analysis, Mr. Trump's maintenance of an environment that fails to incentivize negotiation and compromise, and his inability to grab opportunity by the horns by creating incentives for Iran to re engage in negotiations, leaves the Islamic Republic with few good choices. Renewed hostilities being the best of bad alternatives from Iran's perspective. Thank you for watching and listening to The Turbulent World. I'm honored that you spend time with my work, given that we live in a world of information overload in which time and attention come at a premium. The Turbulent World offers in-depth, independent, evidence-based, and original geopolitical analysis of the Middle East, the Muslim world, and the rise of civilizational leaders that goes beyond what mainstream media offer. Paid subscribers make the Turbulent World possible. They have full access to all postings, podcasts, and videos, as well as the newsletter's multi-year archive. They can post comments and get one-on-one briefings on demand. Please consider becoming a paid subscriber. This is as good a time as any other to subscribe. You can do so by going to jamesmdorsey.substack.com. Thank you, best wishes, and see you soon.